Hello, beloveds. So this is where the story gets messier. Not because I lost my center, but because she lost the narrative. So if you watched the first episode, you know that I had sent a letter, not for reconciliation, not to be liked, not to be understood, but to air another version of the truth and to be done. To close the loop, clear my field, and say what had never been said. To say the thing I was afraid to say because of causing conflict. What happened surprised me, but if I'm honest, it also confirmed everything I already knew, that she had never really seen me, and she definitely never expected me to speak. She responded, but not to the letter, not with ownership, not with compassion, not even with curiosity. She replied with a different kind of message. A slew of distortions, inflations, projections, misremembered timelines, half-truths repackaged as justification of her victim story. And not just about me, about our entire team, much of which was not true, about my husband, about our business. It was a lot. It even attacked my parenting. I read it carefully and then I reread it slowly. My nervous system wanted to go to war, but something in me had already changed with my intention. So instead of lashing out, I grounded in. And here's the truth. This time, it wasn't mine to clean up. So my husband, her actual employer, the person whose reputation was on the line, stepped in. He decided to write a kind, grounded, professional message. Again, he took ownership for any parts of the breakdown that were his, that were ours. He acknowledged what we could have done better, what we didn't know. And after this, we've learned and we would do better. He copied her husband, who was also part of a connected business relationship. And it was pure kindness. It was pure integrity. The kind of message people don't send until they're clear, they're clean, they're standing in truth and willingness to manage their own side of the street. And you know what came back? Nothing from him. And from her, a reply that included, "This is harassment." No, let's pause right there. Because if you're someone who's ever been called aggressive for being assertive, if you've ever been called dramatic for naming what's true, if you've ever been called too much when you finally speak, you know this moment. In fact, it's making the hair on my arms stand up again. It's making my blood boil. It's the moment your boundary gets rebranded as an attack. Not because it was, but because the person on the receiving end has never had to face their own reflection and they're not about to start now. So I want to say something clearly for every person who's ever been gaslit by someone too fragile to own their own impact. Clarity is not harassment. Accountability is not harassment. Boundaries are not harassment. Calling someone in with love, with truth, with language that honors everyone involved, including the person who caused harm, is not abuse. It is leadership. And the reason that I want to name this, because the moment that someone plays the victim to avoid owning their own part, that's not trauma response. That's manipulation. And here's what I didn't do this time. I didn't chase. I didn't reply to get pulled into the loop of defending myself, re-explaining, or trying to clarify my character. Because I had already closed the loop. I had already made peace. And I trusted that the truth didn't need to yell to be heard. But inside, y'all, I was still shaking. Not from fear, but from recalibration. Because that message, it confirmed what I didn't want to believe. That she would never see what she had done. That she would never thank me or my husband or our family for our kindness. She would never own her part. And most of all, she wouldn't like me. She would continue believing her story, that she was wronged somehow. And that was what I had to grieve. Not the friendship, not the work, but the story that I had held on to. That if I was just kind enough, good enough, generous enough, honest enough, she would get it. She didn't and wouldn't. And that was representative of other people forever. And I had to let that be okay. She was a placeholder for all of the times in my life that this has happened. You see, sometimes your growth will demand that you lose the illusion of being liked. Sometimes our healing will require us to be misunderstood. Sometimes the version of you that needed approval has to die in order for the real you to be born. And that's what this was. Not a loss, but a liberation. So if you're someone who's been ghosted, misrepresented, blamed, or told that you were the problem when you finally spoke up against something, this is for you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be soft. You don't need to be liked. You need to be true. What came after that message wasn't a clean resolution. It wasn't vindication. It wasn't validation. It was quiet and it was holy. It was the sound of an old version of me finally stepping down. For decades, I thought telling the truth would mean starting a fight. And more often than not, it did. But now I know that it can also mean ending a performance. I didn't need to be seen. I needed to see myself. And I did. And in the reflection was someone new, someone braver, someone steadier, someone who didn't need to be liked to be at peace. Y'all, I want to be clear. When I say I let go of needing to be liked, I don't mean that I became cold or distant. I mean I became clear. Clear about my values. Clear about my energy. Clear about who gets access to me and who doesn't, and on what terms. My terms. And in that clarity, I found something that I had never experienced before. My own enoughness, untethered from external approval. She called it harassment, but I know what it really was. The moment I broke a lifelong cycle. The cycle of managing others' emotions at the expense of my own. The cycle of shrinking to fit someone else's version of me. The cycle of holding space for people who never once held it back. And that's what healing actually looks like. It's not the glittery, curated kind, but it's the messy, honest kind that begins with a letter and ends with a woman standing in her power. So would I do it again? Why? Because becoming a truth teller broke the rules that kept me small. Hell yeah, I'd do it again. In the next episode, I will walk you through the part that no one talks about. What happens after you speak your truth? The reckoning, the grief, the letting go of the peacekeeper. It was a dying process for me. We're going to talk about how I stopped trying to fix the story and I started writing a new one. And you can too. I'll see you in part 3. I'm not the villain, but I'm not the peacekeeper anymore. Y'all, this is the middle of the fire. I was in it, and we are going to walk through it together. You ready? Let's go.